I'm joined now by the U.S. Ambassador to Canada, David Cohen. Thank you so very much for joining us on this historic night.
Well, Cynthia, thanks very much for having me on your air tonight.
It's our pleasure. You know, I have to ask, being the neighbors to the U.S., it's interesting to have this vantage point. And we've been watching the twists and turns of this election that is arguably the most tumultuous in U.S. history. What are your thoughts as you have been watching this campaign?
Well, you know, I'm in an interesting position because I'm the United States Ambassador to Canada. I'm a senior presidential appointee confirmed by the Senate, and under United States law and I think diplomatic custom, I basically don't have anything to do with partisan politics. And my wife tells me I'm the most disciplined person she knows, and one of my disciplines is that when I can't be involved in something, when I can't impact it, I try to ignore it and focus on the things that I do have control over. So I certainly have not been as focused or fixated on, if I can use another word, on the presidential election in the United States as many Canadians are. But I can tell you that we've experienced tumultuous elections in the past in the United States. They talked earlier tonight about famous election between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr, which ended in a tie, had to be decided in the House of Representatives, almost split the country in half. And Alexander Hamilton actually organized the campaign to be able to get Thomas Jefferson elected as the third president of the United States. And we really didn't look back after that. And you could, I mean, it was sort of the first test of America's democracy, the contention of that election. And of course, one of the best things that happened out of that election is we ended up with one of the best Broadway musicals that's ever been produced in Hamilton.
It was very good. I watched that. Now, let me ask you, it does feel like there's a deep divide in your country. And certainly your country is not the only one experiencing this. But do you think that whoever the next president is, that he or she can help bridge that divide?
Well, I do think there's a divide in the country. This is not new with this election. Our country's been a 50-50 country for many years, at least since the year 2000 in the Bush-Gore election. But I would say that even though there's been a divide, that the country's come together. It's come together on multiple occasions to be able to do multiple things. It's come together to provide support for Ukraine in its battle against Russia, and to support Ukraine in fighting not only for itself but for democracy. So this country has an amazing history over its almost 250-year life. We can disagree on a lot of things. We can be pretty divided, but we do have a knack of being able to come together and ultimately allowing democracy to do its thing. It can be a little messy at times, but as I've said earlier tonight, that although I'm not allowed to talk about the politics, there's one winner that I think I can declare already from this election, and that is democracy. When I look at the turnout, the apparent turnout of this election, the ability that we have as a country to allow what is a divided country. People, there are approximately equal numbers of people in this country believe passionately for Donald Trump and passionately for Kamala Harris. And yet we're providing a forum for them to be able to come out, to vote, to express their opinion. And we're conducting a free and fair election, which is one of the hallmarks of democracy. And at the end of this election, the survivor, the winner, is going to be the United States of America. I hope whoever the president is, I hope whoever the leadership of the United States Senate is, I hope whoever the governors are who are being elected, I hope that the state legislatures that are being elected today, the city councils, the mayors that are being elected, I hope they'll step up as political leaders and work on bringing the country together, not on every issue, but at least on the important issues that are necessary for us to be united.
And what do you see are the key challenges and priorities moving ahead, regardless of who wins the presidency?
Well, that's an awfully broad question, and I think every president, every Congress has to make those judgments for himself or herself. But I think there are some classic challenges that we have as a country that continue to need to be addressed. Our role in leading the nurturing, defense, and growth of democracies around the world. I think we have a significant priority around defense. Defense, again, as a country, but defense of the world's democracies. We have a role in defending the continent, continental defense. I think immigration is a challenge for the United States, a continuing challenge for the United States. I think continuing to rebuild our economy after COVID remains a challenge, and making sure that the growth of the economy reaches all segments of the economy. So I think those are evergreen challenges that the next president will face. There may be different approaches depending on who the president is, but I think you've heard both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris talk about those challenges during the course of this campaign.
And what more does the U.S. want to see from our federal government? I mean, we face an election within the next year, possibly, maybe sooner. What would a change of government here, how would that change the calculation for the U.S.?
So one of the things I hate doing, and this is not just as the U.S. ambassador to Canada, but it's a policy that I've adopted in 40 years of my own public service and talking to the media, is even attempting to answer hypothetical questions.
That's fair.
I think the question of what a Canadian government after its next election, which, as you note, hasn't even been called yet, is certainly in the hypothetical area. But I can talk about this in a present tense state, about what I believe is President Biden's personal representative to Canada, and as the U.S. ambassador to Canada, what it is that's important to the United States about the U.S.-Canada relationship. And we're looking to continue the special relationship we have, as President Biden said when he came to Canada in March of 2023. The United States has no better friend, partner, or ally than Canada. That is the case because of our trade relationship, because of our defense relationship, because of our intelligence relationship, because of the relationship we have in working together to promote and defend democracy around the world. It is true because of our mutual leadership of peace and democracy in the Indo-Pacific, of our shared agenda for continental defense, including defense of the Arctic. And I think that what we're looking for in a present tense, and what I have to believe that any future president of the United States, any future Congress in the United States, future governors whose states do business with Canada are looking for, is a continued friendship, partnership, and allyship with Canada that is the envy of the world.
And we'll have to leave it there on that note. Thank you very much for joining us, David Cohen. We really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me on the air, and I'm afraid you're going to have a long night or 2 or 10 ahead of you.
I believe you're right. And that is the U.S. Ambassador to Canada, David Cohen.